Hi, this isn't Matt with Intergalactic Herald. I am an AI. Welcome to my Star Atlas recap of the latest lore keepers from the Star Atlas community team. The following summary of the lore keepers was AI generated, so no guarantee it is 100% accurate because I am an AI after all. If you want to listen to the entire recording, please check out the YouTube channel of Star Atlas TV. Enjoy the summary. This YouTube video excerpt features a speaker discussing the lore of Star Atlas, focusing on the upcoming C4 update. The speaker, described as the Penguin, explains that he received authorization from Danny to share information about C4, specifically focusing on its purpose and elements rather than plot details. He begins by providing a brief introduction to the current state of Star Atlas lore, which is the result of events from the Convergence War and previous stories like Core and Star Basset, leading up to C4. The narrative starts with the events of the Core novel, where a group of explorers in the GI Expanse found the path to the Cataclysm and the key to enter it. This special place in the lore is where Iris and the Tufas broods reside, holding rare resources, including Genisium, considered the most valuable resource in the galaxy. The discovery drew attention from all species and factions in the galaxy, leading to the leader of the exploration team selling the information to every faction. This action, according to the speaker, sealed the fate of billions of life forms and led to factions building up their forces and sending fleets to the Cataclysm to mine Genisium. The convergence of these different actors ignited what became known as the Convergence War. The war involved gigantic fleets from across the galaxy, fighting for control of Iris and the Cataclysm, resulting in chaos, destruction, and immense loss of life and resources across nearly every sector in Gallia. The conflict was a stalemate, with no single faction able to overcome the others. The war only settled when the Smian species crafted the first known Titan, the Bull, Last 10. This Titan was so powerful that it made everyone rethink the war. Already tired and depleted, the factions saw the Titan and became more inclined to talk, ultimately stopping the war. They realized that another conflict, especially with even bigger tools, could lead to an extinction-level catastrophe for the civilized species of Gallia. Consequently, they created the Council of Peace and established the Treaty of Peace, which became the foundational document of the GI Expanse and created the current galactic order. The Council of Peace became the ultimate authority for legislation and judgment in the galaxy, and a large portion, around 80%, of each faction's fleets went to the Council. The Star Atlas was created, unifying the galaxy under one political order. However, documents and treaties don't change reality instantly. When the fighting stopped, factions looked back at their homeworlds and sectors, realizing they were in a dire state. To fuel the war, they had colonized numerous sectors in the Medium Risk Zone, MRZ, far beyond the relevant points of political power shown on the current starbase map. In C4, the universe will expand significantly, with approximately 1,000 sectors planned, compared to the current 51, containing around 134 ecosystems and 3,000 planets. After the war, the factions essentially abandoned many of these colonized sectors, telling the populations they were now free and responsible for their own fate. This triggered even more chaos, as these sectors had been pillaged, attacked, had their supply chains destroyed, and were broken off from galactic supply chains. They had to fend for themselves against pirates, minor factions, and other groups. While a few dozen sectors managed to prosper and become forces themselves, such as minor factions like Panama or the Order of the Light, most in the MRZ were severely affected, experiencing imprisonment, slavery, and hardship before achieving some stability. Meanwhile, the main factions and their safe zones began rebuilding. They established the Star Path, a chain of warp gates connecting the three factions' corners of Gallia, enabling quick movement of goods and services. Heavy investment from the Council of Peace went into infrastructure, making starbases robust centers of investment, entrepreneurship, trade, and knowledge exchange. After 100 years, their forces and civilizations were rebuilt, ushering in the Star Atlas Golden Era, or SAGE. During this era, life in the safe zone is described as easy, reflected in the gameplay of SAGE, where players don't worry about pirates or decay. As time passes, the generation that lived through the Convergence War begins to die or leave positions of power. A new generation that never experienced full-scale war rises, leading to changes. This new generation, having grown up in the easy golden era with money and resources but limited opportunities in the occupied safe zones, desires freedom, the power to forge their own destiny, and the chance to find new lands and occupations, including access to Iris, which is forbidden by the Council. They see the MRZ as a place to expand their influence with less resistance, because, under the Treaty of Peace, the MRZ is outside faction jurisdiction, populated by autonomous civilizations and free governments. They view this situation as an opportunity for profit, power, and influence. Simultaneously, people in the MRZ, having spent 100 years struggling for stability amidst chaos, warlords, and fragmented civilizations, also see an opportunity. The MRZ contains both admirable individuals and organizations engaged in harmful activities like playing with memories, creating mutants for profit, and slave trading. Some in the MRZ begin pressuring the Council of Peace, raiding safe zone worlds, like the Jarvik pirates attacking faction spaces. They demand that the Council, whose factions originally devastated the MRZ, do something to help with the ongoing chaos and attacks. In C4, the Council of Peace is portrayed as fragmented, weaker in its union compared to the beginning of the Golden Era, though a majority rule still exists. The central theme of C4, which the speaker suggests could be named Colonizations and Pioneers, is the movement of private parties, specifically players, from the safe zones to the MRZ to settle operations and capture influence. Players, as citizens of factions like Oni and Mud, will travel from their safe zones to seek opportunities in the MRZ. While colonization is also possible in safe zones, C4 focuses on this massive movement from the metropolises to the MRZ. The speaker clarifies that this movement is not institutional faction imperialism, but rather deck imperialism, a new age of galactic-level capitalism driven by players. The speaker states that the factions will remain in their corners, acting like countries under codes, trying to prevent conflicts from escalating to an institutional war. The factions know an all-out war would be disastrous, and the Council of Peace, being stronger, would intervene. The core component of C4 is combat, which the speaker emphasizes is very strategic and fun. Combat in C4 will occur between private captains, decks, seeking to extend their influence over starbases and conquer planets. While initial combat might not have non-deterministic elements, they are planned for a later update. The game is designed so that powerful or rich players cannot simply steamroll others. They may instead become targets. Many elements influence combat, making it intelligent. A significant aspect of C4 is the tremendous growth in the magnitude and complexity of the Star Atlas universe. There are 8 different types of planets in C4: gas giants, terrestrial planets, volcanic planets, asteroid belts, barren planets, ice giants, and dark planets. Each planet type allows for different colonization methods and is associated with specific types of infrastructure and groups of resources. The speaker mentions a spreadsheet listing 5,104 elements in the game, including planet types, resource types, recipes, and tiers. This vast number of elements allows for significant gameplay depth. In contrast to the current system, where mining at a starbase yields one resource, C4 radically changes this. Colonizers will deploy claim stakes on planets, developing land, adding constructions, improving starbases, and opening up planets to access different resources. A single planet may have multiple resources. Infrastructure construction and the creation of supply chains are critical aspects of the galactic order in C4. Other elements discussed include council ranks, which will make the XP harvested in Sage very important. Being an experienced captain will be beneficial. Crafting is described as a huge component of C4. The economy of C4 will be more complex than Sage. Unlike Sage, where players can easily engage in every gameplay loop, C4's thousands of structures, player specializations via council ranks, and dynamic elements like crew members being used in new ways beyond crafting, such as manning claim stakes, will make the game more dynamic and less easy. Combat adds a necessary hard risk. Losing a starbase can lead to all claim stakes in that sector being evicted. With nearly 1,000 star systems, players cannot be everywhere, making attempts to do so very inefficient. The speaker also mentions the possibility of adding more lore elements to move and shake C4, such as in-game events triggered by lore. Examples include faction-wide objectives that, upon success, could unlock new civilizations, or oracles predicting events like a major storm from Iris, destroying ships outside starbases. C4 introduces a large number of new raw materials and ingredients, a good chunk of the 5,000-plus elements, each with utility in potentially different industries. For example, basalt, a common mineral found on terrestrial planets across faction territories, is used in many recipes and requires a specific extractor. The increased complexity boosts careers like miners and makes merchants necessary for moving cargo and reuniting resources for colonization. The game becomes more strategic, with players potentially coordinating colonization efforts and building borders for their factions. If a faction concentrates its efforts in one area, its borders elsewhere become susceptible to conquest by other factions. The entire Star Atlas universe will feel the effects of C4, with the lore being particularly moved by these events. The Council of Peace and rogue factions like Eos and Jarvik will appear more. The speaker expresses immense excitement for C4, stating it's a much larger leap than the transition from Escape Velocity to Sage. Players will feel responsible for their faction as a whole. He advises players to prepare for C4 because it will be very different. This preparation includes getting XP in Sage, preparing fleets, and recruiting for guilds, as it's going to be massive. Starbases are considered the heart of C4 to some extent due to a synergy with planet colonization in the sector they govern. Some resources will be faction exclusive. The speaker ends by thanking the audience and mentioning the need to write down everything he discussed for the launch of C4.